Hey, what is up everybody? Welcome to TCC. My name is Ben, and let me just say thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to spend it with us here at TCC. So we're kicking off a brand new series this week, Verses. It's about relationships. Now, not just like dating relationships or marriage relationships, just relationships in general. So it's gonna be super insightful, super cool. And I think there's gonna be a lot of cool information and good information that we can get from the series. So maybe this is the first time you visited us here at TCC. Jump into the chat, say hi to one of the hosts. Also, there's gonna be a link. Click that link, fill out that form, and we will send you a gift just for doing that, because we want you to know that we appreciate you here at TCC. Now, we have so much stuff going on at TCC at all times. So if you want to just stay up to date, always check out our website. We have a night of worship coming up. Just a lot of fun things, and spring and summers. It's slightly coming. I know I might be a little bit early on this, but it's gonna be a good summer. So with that said, hey, let's jump into some more music.
This is the reason I say, for the hope that you give and the joy that you bring, for the promise that heaven is waiting for me. This is the reason I say. My song will be only for you. For the cross that you bore
our churches and how he's connecting different people into, well, the vision and the mission of TCC. There's one gentleman who was connected to our TCC Altoona church, and what I love about it is he absolutely loves what TCC is all about, but he doesn't even live in the area. I mean, he has family in the area, but he lives way down south, so when he's in the area, he'll stop in and go. But, well, again, he loves the vision of, well, our church. He loves the fact that our churches are open to everyone, that our churches are open for people to ask questions and to try to figure out their faith journey, that our churches are, well, that we always just say, just come as you are, and just we want to go on a journey with you. And not only does he love that about our mission, well, he continues to help support through generously giving the mission, the vision of TCC. You see, it's those people that I'm just so thankful for, people like you that continue just to take steps on their generosity journey to fund the vision, the mission of what God is doing, so we can continue to be, well, a church where, well, anyone can take a step in, a church where anyone can take a step in online and just know that they're loved for, well, who they are, that we want to partner with them. If you've not taken that step on your generosity journey, I just want to ask you, take a step, give, watch God do something so incredible in you and through your generosity. Watch God do something within his church. The easy way is to give online. It's what my wife and I do. It's safe and secure, and well, it's a way for us to, well, make giving a priority and to give a percentage of God every time we get paid. We give God first, and we give God our best. So take that step and watch what God wants to do in you and through you. Let me pray. Lord, I just thank you. I thank you for this gentleman that just continues to give generously and support the vision that your church was always about, to be for all people, to be a message of love and hope. Lord, I thank you for the countless people that continue just to give generously so that your vision, your mission of your church not just continues, but to accelerate, to reach more people for you. Lord, in all things, you gave us the greatest gift ever, and we're thankful for that. In your name I pray. Amen.
When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is a mountain, you see a mountain moved. And as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. So when I fight, I will fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet, I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see are the ashes, you see the beauty. Yeah. When all I see is a cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight,
is Ben.
And I'm Jenna.
And we have been married almost 2 years. Do you ever intentionally start fights with your partner? All right.
Wait, this is for each other, right?
Yeah, I'm answering for you. You're answering for me.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1. No!
That's interesting how you wrote that way. What was your partner's first job? This might be a little tough for you. Maybe.
Honestly, there's a job I had I never told you.
So I don't know it.
Well, I bought counterfeit purses from China and I tried to sell them on eBay.
Oh
And
my
then I
God.
got busted and I never did it.
That's not what I was gonna put down. Wait, so what does that
Okay,
mean for me?
besides that really wasn't a job. That was fraud.
Okay, ready?
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
I put landscaping.
Landscaping. Yeah!
Woo!
I did chainsaw carving.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's right?
Yeah.
Where did you go for your first date?
This is tough.
It is tough.
This
'cause
is
what
tough.
do we consider the first date?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to put. I don't know what to put.
You have to put something.
I know.
You have to put something.
I don't know if I felt this one either.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
I put the laundry.
Laundry mat.
Ah!
You did not spell it right at all.
Okay. Who is the messiest in the relationship?
All right. 3, 2, 1. It was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But I'm not horrible.
No, you're not. You're not. You're really not. You help me. You help me around the
I
house.
help you clean my messes up.
Yeah.
Today, I'm super excited because we're kicking off this new series titled Versus, the Battleground of Relationships. And, well, you need to know that this series is for you if you, well, are married or married again or almost married. And maybe you're wondering, what does almost married means? Well, if you're engaged or you're seriously dating someone, or if you're dating someone and you know he is the one you're going to get married, even if he or she doesn't realize that yet. I mean, you can apply any timeline you want to almost, but you're almost married. This series is for you if you're a parent, if you're 1 kid or 2 or 12, if you're almost a parent getting ready to give birth to your very first child, or maybe when you're like my wife and I, it's that parenting afar. What do I mean? Well, it's the empty nest season. For Kim, my wife, and me, we're within a couple years of really being in that. We have an almost 16-year-old and almost 20-year-old, and we're just navigating through what life looks like now and what it's going to look like. Afar. Parenting starts to, shift a bit. This series is for you if you're a grandparent. This series is for you if you're an employee, or if you have employees. This series is for you if you are a friend, or if you have a friend. And across this series, we're going to be looking at, what we call battlegrounds. And here's where, you're going to have a choice. Which one are you going to choose? One side will lead to healthy, thriving relationships, and that's the heartbeat of this series, is how can we have healthy, thriving relationships? And the other battleground leads to broken, fractured relationships. But like I said, you get to choose. Now, there's a word picture, a word image that maybe you're familiar with, more likely that you are, and it can get attached to, different areas in our life. But we're going to attach this word picture, this word image to, relationships. And the word picture is that of an iceberg. What makes icebergs so dangerous is that, 90% of the iceberg is underneath the waterline, which makes only 10% above. I mean, that's why, captains of ships, when they're in the waters where icebergs are, they have their eyes watching out because they understand how dangerous they could sink ships like this. In fact, one of the most famous ships of all time, in 1912, it was sunk by an iceberg. Maybe you're familiar with the name of the ship. It's the Yeah, Titanic. In fact, one of the most famous movies was, called Titanic, was made about that storyline. And, I just have to fully confess to all of you, I personally have never watched the movie Titanic, ever. When people hear me say that, they can't believe it. And they ask the logical question, Chris, why have you never watched Titanic? It's such a classic movie. And there's two reasons why I've just never watched it. The first reason, which is really the secondary reason, is, I know the ending. The boat sinks. There's no surprise at the end. Okay, the boat sinks. I can save myself several hours of life. But it's really the second reason, which is really the primary reason why I've never watched it. You want to know what that reason is? If Rose loved Jack that much, if Rose was so deeply in love with Jack, if Rose knew that Jack was, literally the one, then why did Rose not make room for Jack on the lifeboat? That's my issue. Why didn't Rose just kind of scooch on over to get Jack on the boat? Why didn't she pull Jack on the boat and say, hey, you can sit on my lap? Why didn't Rose just knock someone else off so Jack could be there? There was options for Rose to get Jack on the boat, and she didn't. So that's why I've never watched Titanic. But I digress. You see, what we have to understand is, in relationships, it's what's under the surface that really counts. We, as human beings, spend so much time in our relationships looking at the surface issues, the surface tension, what's going on up here, and so rarely do we get underneath the surface to say, hey, what's underneath there? And we need to pay attention to that. Along this series, we're going to be looking at a series of people that are all connected together. And before we step into a couple of these people, I just want to give some context that will help not just the entire series, but specifically the story that we're going to be looking at today. You see, God wanted to gather a group of people that eventually would become the nation of Israel with the purpose that one day the promised Messiah, the promised King Jesus would come out of. Ultimately, that was God's purpose. And so as he started to form his nation, he used what the Bible calls the Patriarchs. That was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. One of those sons was Joseph. Joseph, through a series of events, maybe you're familiar with his story, makes his way into a pretty high level of power in Pharaoh's, the Egyptian kingdom. There they kind of settled in and the tribes grew, and over a period of hundreds of years, all of a sudden, they became slaves of Egypt. One day, God tapped Moses on the shoulder and said, hey, Moses, you got to go free my people from slavery. So Moses goes and does that, and then, God had promised him the promised land, but Moses, there's a list of some decisions that go against God have some consequences. So one of those consequences was Moses was not able to lead God's people into the promised land. So Moses passed the leadership kind of torch to Joshua, and Joshua actually led God's people into the promised land. And then we entered into this season called Judges. If you're familiar with the Old Testament, the ancient Jewish scriptures, there's actually a book titled Judges. And there's judges that helped lead God's people, but there's also priests and prophets. And that gets us to one of the central characters in the story today. And that person, his name is Samuel. What's interesting about Samuel was, yes, a judge, but he was also a priest and a prophet. And in fact, so much focus and attention gets put on Moses, which is understandable. But Samuel, if not tied with Moses, is right next in line for importance of what God was going to do through Samuel. See, God knew at some point that his nation would have a king, but it was clear that it was on his timetable, and he was clear about what that king would be, and more importantly, what that king wouldn't be. But his people wanted a king now. So one day, God said to Samuel, okay, I'm going to give my people what they're asking for. And we should pause there, because we see that throughout the storyline in the Bible. God knows what's best for us, and there's times where God just goes, okay, I'm going to give you what you're asking for. Not because I think that's best for you, but here you go. And so we should be aware of that. That maybe what we're asking from God isn't what we should be asking for God, and just maybe, God's no, we should listen to, because at some point God might say, fine, here you go. You see, we should be aware that sometimes God will give us even what he knows we don't need or what's not best for us. And this is what he does to Israel. He gives them a king that he knows isn't the best decision, but he does. And so Samuel taps a guy named Saul to be the first king of Israel. And that's where we're going to step into this story today. You can find it in the book of 1 Samuel, named after the judge, the prophet, the priest, Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse chapter 1. This is what it says. Samuel said to Saul, I am the one the Lord sent to anoint you king over his people Israel. And there's two important insights to focus in on. Samuel's making it clear that God sent him. I mean, Samuel wasn't, so many times we think about a priest, a prophet, and there's this kind of meek and mild type of personality, but this was not the case, especially in this season with the judges, someone like Samuel. Like, he's squaring up Saul and like, hey, by the way, God sent me. I'm the one that God sent me to tell you, Saul, that you're king. Tethered into that insight was, hey, Saul, your power comes from God. Hey, Saul, your authority comes from God. Hey, Saul, your position is all tethered to God. Hey, Saul, this has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with God, who has sent me to tell you. And then Samuel goes, so listen now to the message of the Lord. Hey, Saul, you got to listen. You got to listen. Why? Let me ask you this question. Why is listening so challenging? Isn't it? I mean, marriage listening is challenging. As a parent, listening is challenging. As an employer, listening is challenging. As an employee, like, it doesn't matter the relationship. Isn't listening so challenging in our lives? Yeah, experts they say this about our listening skills. They said 55% of our listening is actually watching people's body language. Think about that. Watching how someone just visually responds to a conversation. Then experts say that 38% is all about vocal intonation. And then if you're quick with math, some of you already know the number. That leaves only 7% of actually listening to the words. I mean, this is how it plays out in my marriage, maybe same for you. My wife and I will get into a robust dialogue or a good old-fashioned argument. And some point of us going back and forth, and God both have given both of us a gift of communication, and there's an upside to a gift of communication. But with every gift's strength, there's a gift's weakness, and part of that is, we have very robust conversations. And at some point, we hit this point where someone will say, stop yelling at me, right? That's vocal intonation, right? And the other person will come back and say, I'm not yelling, I'm just passionate. The other person's like, yeah, you are yelling. And then the other person will say, no, you're yelling. You're yelling. And all of a sudden the conversation is completely left from where it started. Now we'll have an argument about how each other is talking way too loudly. If you have kids, you know body language. It usually has something to do with eye rolling. And all of a sudden, what you're trying to correct, the behavior, becomes about, the body language. You see, we as human beings spend so much time on the body language and the vocal intonation. We spend very little time actually listening. And that's why I think it's so important that Samuel says to Paul, hey, listen. Come on, Saul. Your power, your authority, tethered to God. And hey, Saul, you should listen to me because I'm the one that God has sent to talk to you. He goes, so listen. And this is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as they came up from Egypt. Then we got to pause here. What's said next is disturbing. It just is. When I read these words in a moment, I'm just going to say, there's just, especially two very specific words. It's bothersome. And you see, there's moments in the Bible where we like to read, and we're like, I love those words, and other times where we're like, I'm not sure if I like those words. So I'm going to read these words, but I would ask you, give me just a couple moments because, well, I just want to share a couple insights that maybe will help you. Because here's what I know, for some of you, maybe for you, your struggle with God is words like this. And you're going to ask, well, but God, why? God, if you're so loving, then why? And this is what we're told. Now go, attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put them to death, men and women and children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. Now, I don't have time to unpack all of that, especially the children and infants section. But I do want to share two insights that maybe will help you. One insight is this, how God has led over the course of the entire storyline of the Bible. He has led differently across thousands of years. You see, when this was taking place, this was some 3,000 years ago, and the world was a vastly different place than, well, even our westernized culture to this day. I know we get that, but we have to remember, tribes were warring and just wiping out other tribes. We don't know the vast number of tribes that were here on this earth, and no one wrote about them because they were all wiped away. 3,000 years ago, the world's culture was vastly different than we know of to this day. The second insight I just want to share with you is as Moses was leading the Israelites out of the promised land, or out of captivity, out of Egypt. In Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 17, you can read these words. What's interesting, there was this insight given. You see, Moses was leading God's people out of slavery, and this group of, the Amalekites were coming behind and picking off, killing those in the back, those who were weak, those who were slower, those who couldn't keep up with the rest, the elderly, the young, those who, maybe didn't have the best health. And God literally said at that moment, one day I will destroy the Amalekites because how cruel and evil they were to just kill the people at the back. So it was God's promise. God is sovereign God, righteous, just, holy God. So God had promised that one day his judgment would come on the Amalekites. But what we can't miss is what God says to Samuel. He says, totally destroy all that belongs to them. All is the key word. Don't miss all, because God makes sure that he includes all in his instruction, his command to Saul. So what does Saul do? Well, as the story goes on, Saul gathers about 210,000 troops. He sets up an ambush, and in that same area of the Amalekites, there's another tribe of people called the Kenites. The Kenites gets tethered all the way back to, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, to his kind of people group, his tribe, and they were friends with the Israelites. So Saul goes, hey, Kenites, you probably should get out of here because war is going to start. And so Saul goes in, and we're told that he took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and all his people he totally destroyed with the sword. But Saul and the army spared Agag and the best of the sheep and cattle, and spared the fat calves and lambs, and everything that was good. These they were unwilling to destroy completely, but everything that was despised and weak, they totally destroyed. God said all, But they made a little course correction. They started to develop two different categories. Because all couldn't really mean all, could it? So the best cattle, the best sheep, they spared that. Everything that was good, they kept. All that other stuff, little value, they destroyed. You see, knowing what to do is not the issue. Saul knew what to do. God was clear. Samuel said, listen. And here's what I know from my life, and I wonder if it's the same for you. In most of my messy relational situations, I know what to do. I know what to do. I know to make that phone call. I know to try to work on forgiveness. I know that, what Jesus says about love. I know that I need to close the gap. I know I need to let my pride down. For the vast majority of my messy relationship situations, I know what to do. The reality, just like Saul, I'm unwilling. I'm unwilling. Because being unwilling to do what we know we should do is the issue, isn't it? That's those moments in your quietness when you're asking God what to do, and you know what to do. And the tension comes, and you're like, yeah, but I don't want to. I know I need to pick up that phone, but I don't want to. I know that pride is at the root cause of the friction, and I need to deal with my pride, but I'm unwilling. I know I'm not listening. I'm watching body language. I'm complaining about vocal intonation. I'm not listening, but I really need to listen, not what's on the surface of body language and the vocal intonation. I need to get below the surface to what is really going on within this relationship. So what's really going on within this marriage? What's really going on within my child? What's really going on within my employees? What's really going on within my friendship? I need to get underneath the surface, but I'm just unwilling. I'd rather stay on the surface and not really get down deep. See, knowing is usually not the issue. It's being unwilling to do what we know we need to do. Now that's the issue. So God speaks to Samuel. And God says, I regret. That word regret means grieve. He goes, I grieve that I've made Saul king because he has turned away from me and has not carried out my instructions. And we're told that Samuel was so angry that all night long, he cried out to God. God's grieving what's taken place. Samuel's grieving what's taken place. And early that next morning, Samuel gets up to go find Saul. Remember, Samuel as a priest, a prophet, as a judge, isn't some weak individual. He's going to go confront the king. So he goes to try to find Saul. He's not there. And he's told that Saul had gone to Carmel. And there he had, and get this, he had set up a monument to honor himself. I mean, you have to go back to verse 1 and 2. Who placed Saul on the throne? Who gave Saul a position? Who gave Saul power? Who gave Saul authority? God. But now Saul setting up a monument to honor himself. And when Samuel reached him, this is what Saul does. He goes, the Lord bless you. I've carried out the Lord's instructions. Notice that he didn't say all. He said, I've carried out his instructions. God asked me to do these things. I've done that. And then Samuel goes, what then is this bleating of sheep in my ears? What is this lowing of cattle that I hear? If you're a parent or a grandparent, you know this classic moment. You've told your child, your grandchild, they can't have a chocolate chip cookie. You walk in the kitchen, they're walking out, and you ask them, did you have a chocolate chip cookie? Emphatically, they say, no, I didn't. You asked me not to, and you see the chocolate on the corner of their mouth, and you ask them again, are you sure you didn't eat a cookie? No, I didn't eat a cookie. Are you sure? No, I didn't eat. They get really defensive, and all of a sudden you point out the evidence, the chocolate on the corner of their mouth. I mean, this is that moment Saul's like, no, I've done everything God asked us to do. Like, I'm innocent. And Samuel's like, I can hear Saul. I can hear the sheep. I can hear the cattle. And Saul's answer, he goes, the soldiers brought them from the Amalekites. They spared the best of the sheep and the cattle to sacrifice to the Lord your God. But we totally destroyed the rest. Remember, Saul's king. He's responsible, in charge of everything. And he starts to do what, if we're not careful, what we do. He goes, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. The soldiers did it. They chose to. And you got to hold on to this. That always leads to the blame game. And the blame game always ends the same way. It creates more of a mess. It creates more friction. It creates more fractured relationships. It always ends the same way. And Saul just starts blaming everyone. It's like, it's not my fault. They did it. It's like, no, Saul, you're king. You're responsible. You're in charge. You have the authority and the power. Hey, Saul, you need to take ownership. Ownership. Come on, own it. Step up. Ultimately, Saul, it was all underneath you. And see, we've talked about this before. You follow you wherever you go. If you keep on dating the wrong guy, the wrong girl, it's not the guy or the girl. It's you. You follow you wherever you go. If your boss continues to be not the smartest person around you, guess what? You follow you wherever you go. Think about it. What do you constantly complain about others? Guess what? You're the common denominator. That's why you have a choice to make. And Samuel, with all the righteous anger connected to a holy, sovereign God, he goes, enough! Let me tell you what the Lord said to me last night. Hey, by the way, Saul, did God talk to you last night? No, he talked with me. Hey, Saul, did God have a conversation with you last night? No, he talked with me, and this is what God said. Although you were once small in your own eyes, hey, Saul, you had no authority, no position, no power. Did you not become the head of the tribes of Israel? Didn't you become king? And the Lord anointed you king over Israel. And he sent you on a mission, saying, go and completely destroy those wicked people, the Amalekites. Wage war against them until you have wiped them out. So why did you not obey the Lord? Why did you not pounce on the plunder and do evil in the eyes of the Lord? Hey, Saul, why? The instructions were clear. So why? Why didn't you follow God? But Saul comes back, and now he's just arguing. He goes, but I did obey the Lord. I went on mission. The Lord assigned me. I completely destroyed the Amalekites and brought back Agag, their king. The soldiers. Well, they took the sheep and the cattle from the plunder, the best of what was devoted to God in order, and get this, in order to sacrifice them to the Lord your God. He's like, hey, Samuel. They did that for God. They did that. I mean, their hearts were genuine for God. And this is the caution. Don't wrap your unfaithfulness to God with how you're being faithful to God. Think about it. That's what Saul was doing. Yeah, we were unfaithful in that area, but we're going to be so faithful by taking the best sheep and the best cows and sacrificing an act of worship to God. It's okay we're unfaithful there because we're going to be faithful there. Are you doing that? I know, God, I'm not getting that right, but hey, here I'm getting this right. Hey, God, I'm not being faithful to you there, but I am here, so it equals all out. How do you think Samuel responds to that? Samuel replied, he goes, does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the Lord? You see, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. Hey, God wants you to listen and obey. That's better than any sacrifice, any act of worship, is to obey God. Listen to him and follow. Listen and obey. Listen and do what he says. For rebellion, willful disobedience is like the sin of divination, and arrogance like evil idolatry. So Saul, because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. I'd encourage you to read the rest of chapter 15. But let's pause there. You see, it leads us to the first battleground. And the battleground is doing right versus being right. You see, God cares about us doing right, listening to him, and following his instruction. Saul was, focused on just being right. It's like, I did. I followed the instructions. They didn't, but I did. Saul's argument over and over again was trying to be right. God's like, hey, I want you to do right. I want you to listen. I want you to obey me. I said all. Saul, he cared about the surface issue. You see, we look back at this image. Being right's on the surface. Think about your last argument. Was it really about doing right? Meaning looking within you, trying to search, why is this conversation so chaotic? Why is this conversation so enraged? Why is this conversation so tense? Why am I tense within me? Why am I feeling what I'm feeling? Did you just focus on the surface and you just wanted to be right? You want to win the argument. You want to win the conversation. You want to plant your stake in the ground. It's like, yep, see, I'm right. What God really cares about. In our relationship with him and with our relationships with each other is about doing right. What's the right thing to do? What's the right thing to do? My dad would say to me all the time growing up, he'd say, hey, son, you can win the battle, but lose the war. And what he meant was like, yeah, this argument you could win, but the war, having a healthy, thriving relationship, what really matters, you'll destroy that. Yeah, Chris, you can win this, but ultimately what is really important, what he was saying is you can win the surface level above the waterline. You can win that all day long, but what really matters down deep underneath, you're going to lose. Which one's more important? So let me leave you with this question. What is the right thing? What's the right thing to respond with? What's the right thing to say? What is the right thing to do in your relationship? Not being right, but doing right. Right now. A relationship that has tension. Are you focused above the waterline about being right? If you are, which is easy to do, my encouragement for you, get underneath the surface. Because that's where you'll discover what doing right looks like, what God has called you to do in that relationship. Let me pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I just thank you for a raw, messy, fractured story like Saul's to help us learn. I know personally for me, I've seen myself, as I've read through this story, I've seen myself in moments doing what Saul did. So Lord, I pray for all of us, that we can get underneath the waterline, underneath the surface, and really focus on what you have called us to do right. Not to be right, but do what is right. And usually that means looking within us. Where's our pride creeping around? Where's our bitterness that's getting entangled with other relationships? What do we need to own? Who do we need to stop blaming? Lord, I just pray. I pray that even in the uncomfortability, Lord, that we'll lean into some of that tension that will help us all experience healthy and thriving relationships. In your name I pray.
Saturday was silent, surely it was through. Since when has impossible ever stopped you? Friday's disappointment, and Sunday's empty too. Since when has impossible ever stopped you? This is the sound of dry bones rattling. Oh, this is the praise make a dead man walk again. Oh, open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Oh, this is the sound of dry bones rattling. Pentecostal fire, stirring something new. You're not gonna run out of miracles anytime soon. The resurrection power runs in my veins too. I believe there's another miracle here in this room. This is the sound of dry bones rattling. This is a praise make a dead man walk again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of dry bones rattling. My God is able to save and deliver and heal and restore anything that He wants to. Just ask the man who's thrown on the bones of Elijah if there's anything that he can't do. Just ask the stone that was rolled at the tomb in the garden what happens when God says to move. I feel Him moving now. I feel Him doing it now. prophesied as I was commanded. And as I was prophesying, there was a noise, a rattling sound, and the bones came together, bone to bone. I looked, and tendons and flesh appeared on them, and skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. And then he said to me, prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, son of man, and sing to it. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, breath from the four winds, and breathe into these slain, that they may, come on, live, live. Dry bones hear the word of the Lord. Live, live. Dry bones hear the word of the Lord. Come on, live, live. Dry bones hear the word of the Lord. Live, live. This is the sound of dry bones trying to live. Yeah, this is the praise make a dead man walk again. Won't be in the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Won't be in the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Won't be in the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of dry bones trying to live.
And that is our service for today. I hope that you got something from the message. I hope that the music lifted you up. And also from the bumper, I just want to clarify the counterfeit purses. I was 14. I didn't know any better. So besides that, I hope you have an amazing week, and I hope to see you back here next week.